A strange emotion makes me pause on the threshold. I now see these creatures in a new light. It is with anguish that I wonder, before making up my mind to enter, if they will recognize me after my long absence. Well, they do recognize me. All their eyes are fixed on me as they always used to be, and even with a sort of deference. Am I dreaming, or do I really discern a new look in them? A look reserved for me and different from the glances they bestow on their monkey warders? A gleam impossible to describe, but in which I fancy I see an awakened curiosity, an unusual emotion, shades of ancestral memories trying to emerge from bestiality, and perhaps an uncertain glimmer of hope. This hope I have myself unconsciously nourished for some time. Is it not the reason why I am overwhelmed by this feverish exaltation? Am not I, Ulysse Meroux, the man whom destiny has brought to this planet to be the instrument of human regeneration? Here, distinctly stated at last, is the hazy notion that has been haunting me for a month. The good Lord does not play dice, as a certain physicist once said. Nothing happens by mere chance in the cosmos. My voyage to the world of Betelgeuse was decreed by a superior consciousness. It is up to me to show myself worthy of the choice and to be the new savior of this human race in decline. As before, I go slowly round the cages. I force myself not to rush over to Nova's cage at once. Is the envoy of destiny entitled to favorites? I speak to each of my subjects. The moment has not yet come for them to talk. I do not mind. I have my entire lifetime to accomplish my mission. I now approach my former cage with studied negligence. I look out of the corner of my eye, but I do not see Nova's arms stretched out through the bars. I do not hear the cries of joy with which she always used to greet me. A strange misgiving assails me. I cannot restrain myself. I dash forward. The cage is empty. I summon one of the warders in an authoritative voice, which makes the captives shiver. Zanam is the one who appears. He does not like receiving orders from me, but Zira has decreed that he should hold himself at my disposal. "Where is Nova?" He replies he does not know, in a surly manner. She was taken away one day without any reason being given. I repeat my question, in vain. At that moment, luckily, Zira turns up to carry out her tour of inspection. She sees me in front of the empty cage and realizes why I'm so upset. She looks embarrassed and at once starts talking about something else. "Cornelius has just come back. He wants to see you." At the moment, I don't give a damn about Cornelius, or the chimpanzees, or the gorillas, or any other creature in heaven or hell. I point at the cell with my finger. "Where's Nova?" "She's ill," said Zira. "She's been transferred to a special wing." She beckons to me and leads me aside, out of earshot of the warder. "They made me promise to keep it secret, but I feel you ought to know." "She's ill?" "Nothing serious. But it's important enough to put the authorities on their toes. Nova is expecting." She's pregnant," Zira announces, observing me with a curious expression. One day, Cornelius decided to take me to the encephalic section. He introduced me to the head of the department, a young chimpanzee called Helios, and apologized for not being able to show me round himself on account of some urgent work. Helios showed me into a room similar to those in the Institute. We walked past cages occupied by men and women of all ages. My stomach heaved from a succession of horrors. I saw men partially or totally paralyzed, others artificially deprived of sight. I saw a young mother whose maternal instinct, once highly developed, so Helios assured me, had completely disappeared after interference with the cervical cortex. She kept thrusting away a young child of her own whenever it attempted to approach her. This was too much for me. I thought of Nova, of her impending motherhood, and clenched my fists in rage. Luckily, Helios showed me into another room, which gave me time to recover my composure. "Here," he said with a mysterious air, "we indulge in more delicate research. It's no longer the scalpel that is brought to bear. It is a far more subtle medium. Electrical stimulation of certain points in the brain. Do you practice this sort of thing on Earth? Yes, on monkeys, I retorted in fury. The chimpanzee kept his temper and smiled. Cornelius, who had just come in, gave me a friendly tap on the shoulder. But you must admit that thanks to them, our medicine and surgery have made enormous progress in the last quarter of a century. This argument did not convince me any more than the memory I had of the same treatment applied to chimpanzees in a laboratory on Earth. Cornelius shrugged and dragged me off to a smaller room. Only 2 of us ever go into this room, he told me in a solemn tone. Helios and myself. So you see the importance I attach to this work. There were only 2 subjects, a man and a woman, lying strapped down on 2 parallel divans. All is well, said Helios. They are quite calm. We can embark on a test straight away. Helios anesthetized the 2 patients and started up various machines. He then carefully unrolled the bandage which covered the man's skull and, aiming at a certain spot, applied the electrodes. The man remained absolutely still. I was questioning Cornelius with my eyes when the miracle happened. The man began to talk. His voice echoed round the room with an abruptness which made me start. He must have been captive in the institute for a long time and kept repeating snatches of sentences he had heard spoken by the nurses or the scientists. Cornelius presently put a stop to this experiment. We'll get nothing more out of this chap. But the main point is, he talks. It's amazing, I stammered. You haven't seen anything yet, said Helios. He talks like a parrot or a gramophone. But I've done much better with her. He indicated the woman who was sleeping peacefully. 1,000 times better, said Cornelius, who betrayed the same excitement as his colleague. Helios has succeeded in awakening not only her own individual memory, but the memory of her species. I was so amazed by this extravagant claim that for a moment I really believed that the learned Cornelius had gone mad. But Helios was already handling his electrodes and applying them to the woman's brain. The latter remained inert for some time, just like the man. Then she heaved a deep sigh and started talking. For some time, said the anxious voice, these monkeys have been ceaselessly multiplying. We have been wrong to tame them and to grant those whom we use as servants a certain amount of liberty. The woman paused, heaved several anguished sighs, then went on. It's happened. One of them has succeeded in talking. I read about it in Woman's Journal. There's a photograph of him, too. He's a chimpanzee. A chimpanzee! The first! Just as I thought! Cornelius exclaimed. After a long silence, the woman's voice continued in anguish. I was too frightened. I preferred to hand the place over to my gorilla. He had been with me for years and was a loyal servant. He started going out in the evenings to attend meetings. He refused to do any work. I was too miserable. I abdicated. I have taken refuge in a camp with other women who are in the same plight as myself. There are some men here as well. Most of them have no more courage than we have. We feel ashamed and barely speak to one another. Another feminine voice succeeded hers. I was a lady animal tamer. I used to do an act with 12 orang-utans, magnificent beasts. Today, I'm inside the cage instead of them, together with some other circus performers. To give them their due, the monkeys treat us well and give us plenty to eat. They change the straw on our bedding when it gets too dirty. They are not unkind. They punish only those of us who show reluctance and refuse to perform the tricks they teach us. I'm not unhappy. I have no more worries or responsibilities. The woman fell silent,